Poetry is just this exploration of language, doing magical things with language to the point where you respond to it with a kind of gut feeling. So it's using words to evoke emotions and for me really, poetry is a vehicle to speak to people, to reach out to people. I can't separate poetry from, communicating with people. It's a kind of communication to me. You start walking with poems in your head. Something, you hear a snippet of a conversation or you see something and you start walking with it in your head and it starts to ferment, and then eventually you feel the pull. And then I sit down and write. And usually because I've been thinking about it, or it's been festering for a while, when I go to write, it usually comes out in one go. And then I step away from it for maybe a few days, a few weeks, a few months, and then I go back to that same poem and I revise it, because then you look at the poem with new eyes. Inspiration for me comes from the environment and just observing things, especially people and conversations. And in Jamaica, I find people just say the most hilarious things, and we do wonderful things with language, and that inspires me. What I learned in Jamaica. Those first few weeks of dating, you were caught up with finding me a new name. Said you renamed all your loved ones. I heard he loves me and blushed at the thought of being christened again so late in life. We were walking up my stairs to disrobe for the first time when mid-flight you held me, my Tanara, and stopped my breath with your tongue. In the weeks to come, as I danced flat-footed in your dense air, and you bought me new perfume, said my old one smelled like mosquito repellent, refined my diet to suit your taste for raw delights, suggested I cut the color out my hair. It made me look wild and not like myself. Ironies of all ironies, I, who taught that book about men locking women in tight spaces, didn't realize I'd climbed into its pages. What I learned in Jamaica, that was inspired by the fact that I was teaching Jane Eyre and White Sargasso Sea. And at the time, I was, so how do I not get too personal? The thing about it though, I should say at this point, is that for me, practically all my poems are personal, in that I've observed them, experienced them, but then they become a fictionalized representation of experience, because when you're writing the poem, you have to allow the poem to go where it wants to go. As a writer, my great grand hope is that we'll get to a place where we appreciate our writers more, where we realize that, like musicians, our writers are documenting the culture and they're spreading our culture all over the world. So to get more Jamaicans reading, more Jamaicans appreciating the role of the writer, that's my dream and my hope.